Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm a former Boeing 737 pilot, and after 5 years flying the Boeing 737 I finally want to talk a little bit about how reliable is the aircraft actually, how often do we encounter system failures, and how is it flying the Boeing 737 in general. So how reliable is the aircraft then? Well, very reliable. Before I became an airline pilot, I was an avid flight simmer just like you who is currently watching this video. And I always read those comments from those developers about, okay, so those aircraft rarely encounter any failures, and if they do, it's usually a no-brainer at all. So for that reason, we don't put too much effort into failure simulation. Now, luckily that is not the case with PMDG, and we have an extensive failure system here, just like we have with the Phoenix A320. However, it was always interesting for me to learn, well, so how often do failures happen then? And after 5 years of flying the Boeing 737, here is my ultimate answer. Do take into account that my former airline had a very good maintenance, so whenever there was something broken on the aircraft, you had an engineer available almost after every flight, and they could fix most stuff right away. But let's get into it. So, how often do we encounter failures? The answer is not very often, but they do happen. And they do notably happen. So, what does that mean? Well, let's say that you take the quick reference handbook out a couple times per year, and usually it's for minor stuff. So this year, in the first 4 months, I needed the QRH a single time, which was for an FMC right failure. Now, last year I needed the QRH exactly 7 times, most of which were for window overheats, and another FMC failure, and that was pretty much it. The remainder of the things I don't even remember because they simply were minor items. One was a transponder failure, the other was a GPS failure, and that kind of stuff. So really minor things. Keep in mind you have 2 transponders, 2 GPSs, so all of them no-brainers. The most common failure that I actually encountered in the Boeing 737 was a window overheat. So let's go ahead and have a look at what that actually looks like if you want to simulate it. You go to the menu, PMDG setup, aircraft, failures, and then we have to search a little bit. There is all kind of stuff available over here. Now, for our case, let's have a look into miscellaneous, if there is something over here. And here we have, for example, the transponder failures. So if we just go into that, transponder, active, yes, execute. What's gonna happen? Well, we have the TCAS fail indication on the navigation display up here. And then looking at the transponder, we see the ATC, or the transponder fail light illuminated. However, we have 2 transponders, so we simply switch it to number 2. The light goes out, and you can see our TCAS is also working again. Problem solved. That's as easy as it is. So let me cancel that failure once more. I've also had a pure TCAS failure once. Well, happened. Doesn't really matter too much. Now, the TCAS failure actually is a MEL item. They have 10 days to fix it, and that basically solves the problem. So, let's go into ice protection, and there's a lot of stuff over here as well, but the window overheat, that is basically the most common thing that I encountered, and it was always a side heat. So let's say, for example, left side window overheat. Let's go ahead and take that, active, yes. Now that is going to take a little while for the sensor to notice it. Here we go, master caution, anti-ice, and here we go, window overheat. You can see that the green on indication has extinguished because the computer has automatically switched off the heating to the window since the overheat is detected. Now, all the QRH is going to ask us to do is flick the thing off, then wait between 2 and 5 minutes, so we are going to start the timer, and by the time that the timer is up, we are going to switch it on again. Now, I've only had a single case in those 5 years where the overheat light came on again after we gave it the cooling period. And in that case, you are limited to a maximum speed of 250 knots below flight level 100. The thing goes on to the minimum equipment list and you can continue normal operation basically. Now, in the vast majority of cases, what happens is pretty much this. I'm going to deactivate this over here to show you what actually happens, because the overheat actually occurs because you have the sun shining onto the window and thereby heating it up. The heating elements notice that it gets too warm, the computer detects an overheat and shuts the window heat down and illuminates the light. That's what's happening. So, nowadays, after that time, you switch it back on, and then the overheat is gonna go out, and that's basically everything solved again. Might take a little while here in the PMDG for the sensor to notice what's happening, but that's basically it. As you can see, they're all non-brainers. The one thing that I do find interesting on the Boeing 737, and that I did come across on more often, is actually the FMC failure. Now, when I did my type rating, and we started reaching the point in the simulated training where we practiced for engine failures, for FMC failures, that was basically the moment where I kinda switched my brain off and I was like, well, how are the chances that I'm ever gonna encounter a dual FMC failure? How are the chances that I'm ever gonna encounter even a single FMC failure? Those things are reliable as hell, aren't they? Well, I couldn't have been more wrong. Now, it is true that I never had an FMC fail in that the FMC would have physically broken down. That never happened. But what did happen, rather often indeed, especially when flying on new aircraft that came fresh out of the factory, what did happen there is that the things get some inputs from the computer. They do something like trying to divide by 0. The FMC hangs itself up in a loop and the things go out. And that does happen rather often. That does happen really often indeed. So, I believe in my first year of flying I've had like 5 dual FMC failures. Now, after that, as our aircraft grew a little bit older, and basically similar to a car, you just need to drive it a little bit and then it gets more reliable. Similar to that, you need to fly the aircraft a little bit and then they get more reliable. So, once they grew a little bit older, those FMC failures basically stopped, and I have maybe had an FMC failure a year. Now, just recently, when I flew a Boeing 737 MAX, basically for the first time, I've had an FMC failure. Of course. Well, even that though is pretty much a no-brainer. So, the thing goes out, the FMC is going to try and reboot itself, so it has a automatic restart sequence, which takes 2 or 3 minutes, and thereafter the FMCs usually come back. From all those FMC failures I had, there has only been a single case where the FMC was not able to restore itself within like 10 minutes or so, and, well, in that case, we landed the airplane without FMCs. Well, so be it. Not too much a problem either. Let's see. Let's go FMC right fail. Active. Yes. And there you go. First sign there of the thing happening. You get the vertical track indication where your VNAV path would usually be. And then after a while your navigation display is going to start losing information. Failure flags are going to show up like this. And if autopilot B would have been in command, then LNAV would have disengaged, VNAV would have disengaged, and basically all that we do at this point is this: heading select, altitude hold. By the way, this is also part of the reason why we always match our heading bug to the heading that we're currently flying. Like this, we simply continue straight ahead, and yep, now it's gonna take a little while until the thing has restored itself. And this could take 5 to 10 minutes. Then the FMC has usually restored itself, and at some point this is gonna happen, your indications start coming back, you carefully verify that the route is still correct, LNAV, VNAV, problem solved. So this is like the kind of stuff that we're experiencing on a daily basis in the Boeing 737. Now, obviously that is aircraft and system related. The stuff that we experience the most actually is passengers getting sick or toilets getting blocked. For some reasons, there are a couple countries which I'm not going to mention. Whenever we fly there, the passengers manage to block the toilet by throwing the entire roll of toilet paper in. They managed to peep into the hand basin and so on. So, in some countries, I don't know why it is, you start with 3 toilets in the airplane and you're happy if one of them is working by the time you get back to your home base. That is the stuff that we experience the most. Apart from that, passengers getting ill is also something that happens every now and then, like maybe once a month. Your cabin crew is going to call you and say like, yeah, we have a passenger who's not feeling very good. We gave him some oxygen or we gave him some sugary water and they are now feeling better. I've never had a case like these develop into a situation where an actual diversion or even a pan would have been necessary. I believe I've had 1 or 2 cases where we've had a doctor on board and they said like, yeah, we'd prefer the passenger to be met by an ambulance after the flight, and even those weren't urgent enough that we would have to declare a pan for a medical emergency, but we could simply land normally and then ask for the ambulance at the gate. Obviously we'd ask for the ambulance a little bit earlier so that the ambulance is actually there by the time you arrive at the gate. I've had maybe 1 or 2 cases in those 5 years where the paramedics actually needed to come on board. Apart from that, they basically always were able to take the passenger outside the plane and then treat him in the ambulance. Alright, that is basically it already. That is the kind of stuff that you go through, well, not on a daily basis, but on like a monthly or yearly basis as an airline pilot. That is the kind of failures that we do experience. So, that's basically going to be it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed this little insight. If you did, then do let me know in the comments below. Obviously, once again, my airline had a very good maintenance, so it may be different in other airlines, but nonetheless, I hope this gives you a little bit of an insight. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I am looking forward to see you all again on the next video. Until then, thank you very much. And if you really like what I'm doing, then like, comment and subscribe. And if you really love what I'm doing, I would appreciate to see you as a channel member, which is going to give you early access to new videos before they're released for anyone else from business class membership onwards. And if you feel like, well, I don't want to sign up for anything, you can always support me using the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you for watching. I'm looking forward to see you all again, hopefully very soon.